Hey guys, welcome back to Father and Son Investing. Today we're going to talk about Roth IRA, that stands for Individual Retirement Account for teenagers. Yes, a teenager can have a Roth IRA. We'll talk about what a Roth IRA is versus a traditional IRA. We'll talk about how this can be an advantage for a teenager getting started in their Roth IRA early. We will talk about the pros and some of the cons of a Roth IRA, and we'll talk about how these funds can be used even as a teenager. Stay tuned. All right, an IRA, again, that stands for Individual Retirement Account. It was codified by the United States government in 1974 and allowed people to contribute $2,000 to an individual retirement account. At that time, there really were no criteria for people to be able to contribute to this, and so anybody was doing it and the government was losing a lot of money in taxes. Then they started setting up a few more rules about who and what and how and why. In 1997, the Taxpayer Relief Act created the Roth IRA. We're going to talk about the differences between those two quickly, and then we'll move on to the Roth IRA in particular. All right, a traditional IRA allows a taxpayer to set aside a certain amount of money up to the allotment for the year. This year it's $6,000 if you are less than 50 years old. They can set aside a certain amount of money, and that money will not be taxed. And it is put into a retirement account which has rules about when that money can be taken out. Now, some people may be making more money than what the government allows as a tax-deferred contribution. That changes from year to year. But one can still make a contribution to an IRA. It just will be that you pay the taxes on it ahead of time. Then when the money is withdrawn, only the earnings are taxed because the contribution has already been taxed. That's enough about traditional IRA. Let's talk about Roth IRA. A Roth IRA allows one to contribute post-tax money, meaning you've already paid the tax on that money, and then the earnings grow tax-free for life. At least that is currently the way the system is set up. Obviously, the government can change those rules anytime they like to. Now, again, just for clarification, we're going to be talking about Roth IRA today, which is a type of retirement account. These terms start to get a little confusing sometimes. There's IRA, there's Roth IRA, there's a simple IRA, there's a SEP IRA if you're self-employed. Of course, 401ks can be done through your employer, and there's also something now called a solo 401k. All of these things are different. We're just talking about Roth IRA today. Next, let's talk about what qualifies a teenager or any person actually for a Roth IRA contribution. The qualification is earned income. Earned income, that's all. It just has to be income that is bona fide and earned. So if a child sets up a lemonade stand and they earn money from that, that is earned income. If they are a babysitter and they earn money from that, that is earned income. If they mow lawns for people, that is earned income. Obviously, if they have a job at the local supermarket or hardware store, that is earned income. What are things that are not earned income? Interest on a savings account, dividends on an investment account, birthday money, etc. So now that we've established what qualifies one to be able to contribute to a Roth IRA, let's talk about the advantages of this, particularly for a teenager. All right, so I've used Excel to set up a simple spreadsheet. You can use the future value function in Excel to help do this math. I did not do this all on my own. The nice thing about this is that we can change some of the factors in here and see how the money changes. Now, the average rate of return for the S&P 500 is typically quoted at 10%. However, that is an average, and keep that in mind. There are years when the S&P 500 has returned far more than 10%. If we just look recently, in 2013, it was almost 30%, and in 2020, only 16%, but in 2019, again, close to 30%. There obviously have been some years when it has been very in the negative, such as 2008, when it was almost 40% decrease. I think that's important for a young person to keep in mind because they need to realize that there will be some years where their money just doesn't look like it's growing, and don't become too disheartened about that. All right, so what I've set up here is an example of a person investing when they're 13 versus each year up to age 30. Now, the the contribution, the maximum contribution to a Roth IRA for someone this age is $6,000 currently. And I put in a rate of return of 6%, which is being rather conservative if the average S&P return is 10%. I threw in a retirement age of 65. That obviously can vary from person to person. And then we can see what the balance is at retirement. All of this done with the future value function. If a person starts when they're 13, by the time they're done, they will have just a little bit shy of $2 million. Now, everything in that account when they're 65 is not taxable. They will have put in $6,000 a year for all of those years, and that certainly that $6,000 was taxable on the way into the account. Now, if we fast forward 10 years to a 23-year-old, we'll see that the amount is almost half that will be in that retirement account. We're looking at just a little bit more than $1 million. So those 10 years return $1 million more just by starting that investment account a little bit early. Now, if you do the math, you're only looking at $60,000 in additional contribution over those 10 years, but due to the wonders of compound interest, it's $1 million more. I think you get the idea of start early, start now. There may be people who are earning money even before they're 13 years old. As long as it's earned income, they can start contributing. Now, I mentioned a point earlier that I need to clarify. $6,000 is the maximum contribution limit, and that is earned income, meaning that the person needs to be able to show that they earned that much money over the year. However, they don't have to deposit the money necessarily that they earned. So if I'm a teenager and I earn $6,000, but I only want to put $3,000 into my IRA, my grandparents or my parents or my aunts or my uncles or anyone else could actually contribute another $3,000 into it because I earned $6,000 for the year. So hopefully that clarifies that. So you can get birthday money in there. It just has to be that you also earn that same amount. So what happens if we just change this to 10% rather than 6%, just, for interest's sake? All right, we switched it to 10%. That would be awesome if it could actually continue to do that out into the future. If that's the case, then those $6,000 contributions over the lifetime of that 13-year-old will add up to equal almost $8.5 million. And if you wait till you're 23 years old, that adds up to about $3.25 million. So you can start to see the big difference, especially as interest or compound interest takes its effect and the rate of return. Next, let's talk about how this works and what are some of the benefits. This is a nice little graphic from Napkin Finance. So what happens is one opens a Roth IRA account. In the case of a teenager in the United States, you have to be at least 18 in order to do this on your own. So you're going to need to open a custodial Roth IRA account with an adult who can be the custodian of this account until you reach that age. You can contribute your after-tax money. The money grows tax-free, and you can withdraw that money tax-free in retirement. What are the benefits? Well, you can withdraw the contributions anytime tax-free. What does that mean? If I'm putting in $6,000 a year and suddenly I need that money 10 years from now for something, I can withdraw the contribution, so that would be $60,000. Now, I can't withdraw the earnings on that without paying a penalty. There are some limited reasons or circumstances where that can happen. We'll discuss that in a little bit. Now, why would this be an advantage to do as a teenager? Well, currently in the United States, the amount of money that one needs to earn where you must file a tax return is right around $12,000. Most teenagers are probably not going to be making that, or many of them at least, and so they are not going to need to file a tax return or pay any taxes at all on that money that they're earning on their lemonade stand or babysitting or lawn mowing. So you're taking money, getting it tax-free, and it will earn money tax-free for the rest of your life. For those who are earning more than the $12,000, it's still quite a good deal because your tax rate is so low as a teenager that you'll be paying minimal amount of tax on this money, which is then going to go tax-free for the rest of your life. All right, what are some limited circumstances where you can actually withdraw the earnings tax-free? Well, one of them can be on a first-time home purchase. So if you've had your account for 5 years and you then are saying, wow, I want to purchase a home, and look at all this extra money that I've made on my earnings, you can also withdraw that for that as well. The other circumstance where Roth IRA money can be used is to pay for college tuition. Now, if you do take the earnings out for that, you are going to pay taxes on the earnings, but you won't pay a penalty. So I said we'd try to talk about some of the cons of a Roth IRA. For a teenager, honestly, I don't see that many cons. They will have to pay taxes, potentially, if they've earned over that $12,000 limit. That can be, difficult, I guess, for a teen to look at that and see that they're paying the government something. I think that can easily be overcome. What else is one of the cons? Well, you can only put in $6,000 a year, so it certainly would be nice if you could contribute much more than that. But I don't see that much of a con there either. Now, obviously, for people who are earning much more money, it may not be to their advantage to pay the taxes up front if they're in a very high tax bracket, when they might be in a lower tax bracket sometime in the future when they retire. In that case, a Roth IRA or 401k might not be the best thing for you. You'd have to talk to your financial advisor about that. Now, the last question many of you may be asking to yourself is, this sounds great. How do I go about doing it? I have prepared a video for the Charles Schwab Custodial Roth IRA that's on our YouTube channel. I will be preparing another video here soon that will talk about how to go about trying to choose which company you would like to use for your custodial Roth IRA account. If this video was informative and you found it worth your time, please give us a thumbs up. That is really important to the YouTube algorithm. We would love to have you as a subscriber. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, please go ahead and do that. Until next time, enjoy your investing.